Well, that doesn't look normal. All right, y'all, it is Monday morning for me, and I just came back to town from a really cool weekend. I actually got to race some go-karts, some vintage go-karts. They're vintage enduro go-karts, and I had all kinds of fun. Ozark International Speedway, if you're into karting or want to be in the karting, go there. If you're not into karting and you just go watch a race, you'll be into karting. And we really enjoy the vintage stuff a lot. Let's do like a 5-minute recap of the weekend with a little bit of onboard video, because I think you need to see this track. Wait, we don't have cruise control either?
No, you just keep your foot to the
There's no lights that work in here. There's no headlight on this side practically. And we're leaving at 11. Are you to the floor?
Yeah, she's to the floor.
Alright, so we've got 3 hours to go. Yay. Let's make sure nothing else breaks. We're making progress. We'll get there eventually. Oh, look, maybe I'll get some sleep. Quiet ride. After missing an entire day of practice because we all had different problems with our karts. Motors had to be swapped, carburetors had to be replaced. Granted, all of these started before we left. We still had problems, literally just setting them down, trying to get to practice. Started them before, started them in the truck, waited. Then as soon as practice started, all 3 karts had problems. All different problems. This one, my brother's got onto the track for a couple laps. He sorted out, it's moving. Mine is soaring on the track. I don't know what it is, what the setup is, but I'm not touching it because it is moving. For a vintage 1989 to 92 kart, these things are moving on the track. They are very cool. Then you have my uncle's that he built himself, titanium frame, dynoed motor. The thing's fantastic. I think blow these things out of the water, but you know, it's brand new. Fantastic motor. These Yamahas are kind of expensive to maintain. They're old. I mean, they're super old. These things actually used to come off of ultralights, but the funny thing is they love to just wind up and it just screams in your ear. So you actually have to wear like headphones or earplugs when you run them, because it'll just absolutely blow out your eardrums. They're all belt driven, pipes. These things are 2-stroke motors that just absolutely scream at you while you're running, and you're just waiting for them to honestly just explode. There's my brother's helmet. Absolutely the coolest helmet on this track, I promise you. And honestly, the color red that he has is fantastic. He's got the red, I have the Home Depot orange, and then my dad over there has the Kubota orange, or Kubota orange. So it's a little different, but helps us kind of identify whose is whose. We're also at the Ozarks. The guy who owns this track, believe it or not, used to have a giant trash business. He sold it and he bought the coolest 3-point-something mile, nearly 4-mile track in the middle of Missouri, and it is the most gorgeous track I've ever been to. We've been to Black Hawk, Gateway, probably will never go back to Gateway, Mid-Ohio, all those other places, and this place is fantastic. Here's the coolest part. So my dad and I didn't get to see the track yesterday. I didn't get to get on the track because I wasted all my time trying to fix my stuff. The owner let everybody get out on the track, but everybody else had already gone, and my dad and I were like, okay, we need to go see this. My dad had been on the track last year, but he wanted to show it to me. So we pull the truck up to the track line, and this guy waves me down and says, hey, why don't you just jump in with us? Ends up being the track owner, and he took me in his 6.7 liter Ford F-250 around the track. I kid you not, at over 100 miles an hour, and he's showing me every line, everything. He has no idea who I am. He has nothing, no connection with me. He doesn't know if I race a tiny, really slow go-kart. Coolest track owner I've ever met in my life. His name's JR, I believe. And if you're into karting, you need to come here to Ozark, because it's just fantastic. If you want to get into karting, just come here and you'll fall in love with it. telling you, you won't be able to get away. anything about karting, you'll notice that guy with the bodywork was still racing with me. That's a modern enduro racing in our class. So that's why you could see he had all that top end speed and he would accelerate like crazy away from me, which made it almost impossible to pass. But I was scrubbing so much time during that run because he couldn't take a turn the same way I could. He would brake so early, he would slow down. So it took me forever, and I had to do quite a ridiculous maneuver to finally get around him and actually put down faster lap times on my own without him being in my way. Just kind of happens when you're in combined classes. Sometimes you're with guys in faster karts, but might not be better drivers. Those motors absolutely scream, and man, that is a very challenging but beautiful course. But anyway, while I was doing that this weekend, I got a phone call that was incredibly unexpected. And it was one of those things, I dropped off a piece of equipment on Friday, maybe even Thursday. I might have dropped it off a day early for him. And come Saturday, while I'm wrenching on a cart frantically trying to get it ready to get on the track, I get a phone call from a buddy of mine who actually rented the piece of equipment and said, "Hey man, the coupler blah 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 on this Mini just snapped." And I went, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're messing with me, okay, whatever." And he's like, "No man, like I'm dead serious, like this is a call I didn't want to make." And I'm like, oh. And I'm having a day as it is. I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, another thing. I'd got phone calls about dumpsters that couldn't be picked up because people blocked them. One dumpster was so overweight, and now I'm pulling teeth to get paid for it. That one's a big ordeal that I'm dealing with. That is one of the worst things. That's why you always keep a credit card on file for somebody. But anyway, this one in particular took me by surprise because the guy who was renting the equipment is not very abusive on stuff. He's rented from me before. He's rented dumpsters, super respectful. And I know he's very versed in this equipment and uses it all the time. But take a look at it. Again, this guy uses equipment all the time, but look at this. So this is a cast iron link that basically connects these pieces. There's also a cast iron pin in here, which now is basically causing the thumb to dangle and the bucket to dangle because it's sheared off. And the worst part is, he was just picking up or prying out concrete that had already been jackhammered with the skid. So this literally is scooping up on the backside of a piece of concrete, and just like most people do, they curl it with the blade down. As they curl it, this thing snapped, and he said it made the most horrific sound, and of course everybody on the job site's jaw just dropped. And I've seen video of him before jackhammering everything and all, so I know like he wasn't being abusive, and he, like I said, he uses this stuff all the time. So I'm kind of in a weird pickle right now where I'm going back and forth with a warranty department and the service department being like, look, this machine only has 150 hours, and he didn't just crack it, it sheared. And it makes me kind of mad because this machine was bought in 2022, kind of during all the COVID craziness stuff, and I truly feel like this is maybe a rushed factory defect, that this cast was just trash. Because I would expect, and somebody can tell me I'm wrong, that the piston in this rod would basically bog out before it would ever produce enough pressure to cause such damage like that. And he said it wasn't like a, you know, crack. It just instantly, just as he curled, he wasn't even at full tilt yet, and it absolutely snapped it off. So tell me what you think. I mean, I've heard this kind of stuff happen before. I'm not going to pretend like this is like unheard of, although it was unheard of to me until I did some research. But I do find that only with 150 hours on the machine, this probably shouldn't have happened. I can't afford to replace something like this or ask somebody to replace something like this every 150 hours I have a piece of this machine, especially if it's always going to be doing concrete work. And that does seem to be every single person I've talked to that this has happened to, or they've seen it before, same story, concrete. And it seems to have only been in the last year or two, at least with these Kubotas that have come in. I've seen multiple posts of guys saying KX-040, KX-040. and this happened. I believe you can buy a non-OEM steel fabricated link, and I'm considering doing it because why wouldn't I replace it with something like that? And the only thing I can expect is I might bend something if it's stronger, and that cast is the one thing that's maybe preventing more damage to the machine itself, like the actual arm and whatnot. Maybe that's why the cast there, it's a weaker link, so that breaks before like more damage would happen. But that kind of blows my mind. Now here's the deal. How do I handle the situation if a warranty department doesn't honor it? Because I don't feel that he, you know, abused it entirely. Was it under a lot of strain? Probably. It probably was. But should that have happened? I really don't think so. So how do I handle it? Because I know the guy will rent from me again, and I don't want to bend him over a barrel to, you know, fix something like this. So I have to come up with a unique situation to handle this if I can't get Kubota or a service department to honor the fact that that's probably not supposed to do that, at least not so soon. All right, so we got to be really careful when we pick this up because we don't want to damage the thumb too. Like I said, that cast iron is hard to see. This pin's broken. I just was trying to line this back up, but I'm guessing that pin's probably still a little bent. It's, you know, a little kinked up. Nothing's probably going to line up straight right now, so I'm literally going to wrap a couple bungee cords to the bucket to just keep it straight, so we didn't want to end up swaying this thing off and then breaking something else. So let's just hope we can keep this thing all together when we get it loaded. All right, she's loaded up. Bucket's definitely held down separately, chained up. Let's go find out what we can do about this. All right, so I ran it by the implement store, you know, the place that also sells these. Fortunately, it's not the place I bought it from because that's a lot farther away because they were the only people that had it, you know, kind of during the COVID times. But they did say that they would, you know, submit my claim for warranty. But of course, that won't be till Thursday, and today's Monday when they would submit it. And then I'm sure it won't be right away that anything gets done. They'll have to wait for somebody at Kubota to decide my fate. But of course, here's the one thing that drives me crazy about this. Of course, since this broke over the weekend and into this morning, I've had 3 people ask to rent this mini excavator. And that's only now. I can't imagine how many people will probably reach out by Thursday, and then however many days it takes to get a part in to fix this. So there's this part of me that absolutely just wants to order the part online, take the hit, and get this over with. But at the same time, if I do that, I need to talk to the person who used it last to try to split that cost. But if we can dodge all of that and actually just make the warranty work, that's nice. So it's like lose a little income because I don't have it out, save a little income, and of course I want to keep a good relationship with the guy who rented it because he's rented machines from me multiple times. He's rented dumpsters from me a lot, so I want that continued business. So at the end of the day, you have to sometimes just make a decision, and right now I'm just gonna play it out. I hope they submit Thursday, and by the end of the week I kind of at least know something. That way I can pull the trigger on, you know, what I need to do next. But this is the cost of doing business. It's never easy, and things always happen this way. It's never just a smooth problem. It's a problem with multiple decisions you have to make. You got to get over it. The biggest thing that will hand grenade a business owner is the lack or ability to make a decision under pressure. Not only make a decision under pressure, but get so overwhelmed with stress and or decisions or problems, some of which I've seen very, very small problems break people, where it's like it just compiled, and then finally just one small thing that probably was manageable enough, but it was just like that tipping point for them, just broke them, and then they had no interest in what they were doing anymore. It happens, but you just got to learn to kind of like power through, truly. So tell me what you would do. How do you handle the situation? I kind of have an idea of what I'm gonna do, depending on the outcome of the warranty, but it's kind of one of those delicate things. I know the guy who used it, and I want to, you know, continue to do business with them, but I can't take a bath every time something like this happens. So I'm really going to play this out, see what my options are. But this isn't like a Kubota thing. So before you jump in the comments and say, oh, it's that Kubota piece of junk, I talked to multiple mechanics and I talked to multiple people who rent these, and Taguchi, John Deere, Kubota, they've seen it on all of them, and I even got photos from guys that said the same thing, and again, it was always from concrete. So it does happen to them. Of course, just like any good business owner, my contract does say that any damage that is caused to the machine due to, you know, abuse, negligence, whatever it is due to the person renting it, or the responsibility of the person renting it. But again, delicate situation I'm in. So go ahead, tell me what you do. Hit me up in the comments. And if you do this business, I'm looking for all the advice I can. I am learning. I'm trying to figure out as a business owner how to keep a business like this going without taking a bath all the time, but without infuriating future business as well. So drop in the comments what you would do if you were me, and like and subscribe to stay up to date on this one and any of the other future stories that we post here, because there's always something happening.